Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Ball Oasis Show. It is free agency time. Free agency, the period starts tomorrow. And what better way to start off the free agency and the player movement period? It's basically what it's going to be referred to as by me over the next couple of weeks. Than to see earlier today James Harden opting into his $35 million player option and essentially requesting a trade right afterwards. So he has likely played his last game as a Philadelphia 76er. I always like to start these episodes off by asking Jacob a question. Big question right here, Jacob. Your guy, your point guard on your team, James Harden, is likely played the last game as a Sixer, only after a year and a half with the team. What do you expect to happen with just everything that we've seen so far?
Um, knowing knowing our GM, I think they're gonna try to get a star back, but it's gonna be hard because Harden is on a 1 year deal. Um, but they couldn't come to they didn't see him in the long term future, which was understandable. I think they wanted to give him like a 2 year deal, and he wants 3 or 4. Uh, so we'll probably have to either I don't know. It's gonna be weird. He's probably gonna get traded quick. I think just to open up cap space so we know what to do. But it's gonna be kind of hard to find somebody to replace him, or move Maxi to the 1 and then replace him. So they got some work to do in these the next few hours.
Yeah, that one kind of came out of left field today. Is my expectation and a lot of people's expectation was that James Harden would likely decline that option in search of a more long-term contract with more money than the 35 million, which he'll be getting, is what we've seen over the last couple of days, most likely. But no, he opts into the option, and he's on the trade market. And we've seen teams early on, like the Los Angeles Clippers and the New York Knicks, as potential suitors for James Harden. And like Jacob said, don't expect a star to headline the return for James Harden in this trade with him being on an expiring deal. Um, where you look at the Clippers, personally, I don't expect Paul George to be thrown into a potential Clippers trade. I think it would be a package of like Norman Powell and Marcus Morris and Terrence Mann, and potentially guys of that caliber. But I think that that's a solid return.
Yeah,
I guess it just depends on what Joel Embiid thinks.
yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about Joel in all of this? He kind of vouched for James Harden. He's been a believer in James Harden since he's been there. So to see James Harden walk out the door and now Tyrese Maxey be his second best player, where do you think Joel Embiid sits right now, Jacob?
Uh, he's probably gonna wait and see, but he does want that extra star, which I know they believe Maxi can be that. Joel believes it. He said it before, but I know he does want that. You know, Harden or Paul George type of player. That star player alongside him, established star. But I don't know. He might want out if it don't look too good after this year or next year.
Yeah, that's something that I've been a little suspicious of for a little while, even before James
Yeah.
Harden requested trade. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Sixers. Anyway, so in today's episode, this is something that we did last year in one of our first episodes in our channel's existence. We are currently about 24 hours removed from the beginning of the free agency period, where players can start verbally agreeing to deals with their new or current team. So, what we're going to do here today is a game we played last year. It's called the Name Your Price game, where me and Jacob and you watching, if you'd like to, can take the role of a GM and give a contract to these free agents based on how you value them. And the little wrinkle that we're going to throw this time around, which we didn't do the first time, is we're also going to give our prediction of what team we think the player will end up with, along with the amount of money that we believe that they'll receive as well. So this free agency class isn't a very stacked one. None of the top headlining guys, the biggest names that we see in this class are Kyrie Irving and Chris Middleton, Russell Westbrook, Draymond Green. So, I mean, they're good players. They're really good players, all star level players, but no superstars or no guys who are going to just absolutely blow anything out of the water. from the free agency market at least. Trade
Yeah.
market could give us something different.
Yeah.
So we've got this list of guys here today, and I think we'll just go down the list for a little bit. This may be a shorter episode, but we'll just see how it goes. So Jacob, the first name I'm gonna start with a bang. I'm gonna throw Kyrie Irving. Give me your ideal contract for Kyrie Irving as a GM of a team. This is a tough one because Kyrie has missed a lot of games over the past 2-3 years, hasn't really been committed to a singular organization for a very long time. So how do you gauge Kyrie Irving? I want to see what you do here.
How old is he? 30? No.
Kyrie Irving is 31 years old.
I think I'd either do 3 or 4 years because he still is a great player when he plays. Can really help the team. I'll do 4.
This is tough. It's tough to gauge Kyrie Irving's value. Of course, his talent is going to warrant a supermax deal, but his availability may hinder him a little bit. So, what you thinking?
I could see a 160, maybe like a 3 1. I don't know, 120, 130. Like you said, it's the availability. I think the only team that's going to offer him is Dallas, so they're going to have to pay for him if they want to keep Luka happy. But yeah, like you said, when he plays, he's really great. But it's just he hasn't played a lot of games the last few years, whether it be injury or off-court stuff. But if you want to win, you're going to have to pay him. You have to take that risk.
Yeah. I think for 160, especially with the new CBA intact, I think that's a little bit of an undersell for Kyrie Irving. He'll definitely get more money than 160. But
Yeah.
as you saying that, I completely understand why you wouldn't give him more than that. And I think 45 million is around where I'll sit as well. So I'll go 4 years. I'm gonna go 185 for Kyrie. Because I do believe in his talent, and I think that like we said, a lot of the off the court stuff is past us at this point, and it's just an injury thing now with him. Where can he stay on the floor?
Right.
Is he available through injuries? And will he have a home for multiple years where he's not getting traded every 2 years? So I'll go for 185. I'll go for 185 for Kyrie. Jacob, where do you think Kyrie will land? What team do you think he'll be on here in the next few weeks?
Dallas, Philadelphia might now, but I don't think I want that. But more than likely Dallas.
Yeah, I'm going Dallas as well. I don't think that any team will put together an enticing enough offer to lure him away from Dallas.
Yeah,
and I think it was Dallas' plan all along to accommodate to Kyrie in free agency. So I think that they'll go ahead and do that and make sure that he stays around. So, yeah, I expect Kyrie to be on Dallas. Maybe Miami puts in some chips.
Yeah.
Maybe a team like the Clippers goes out. We saw that he could have a meeting with the Suns. I think that kind of got deaded within the last couple of hours. But, yeah, I expect Kyrie to be a Maverick.
Yeah, and like you said, with the new CBA, it is kind of harder to pay more players. So you kind of got to – I don't know much about it. I know it's like 2 aprons, and it's just harder to pay more players.
Yeah, a lot of new termage, a lot of ins and outs with the new CBA bargaining agreement. Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a lot of termage that is a little foreign to maybe some viewers on this channel. Foreign to me as well. It was a hard read the first couple times around, but I finally think I got it. Second player here. Let's go ahead and go to Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant spent the last season in Portland, last year of his contract. He's 29 years old, averaged over 20 points a game, seeking a long-term deal, either with Portland or potentially a new team. There will likely be a lot of teams throwing Jeremy Grant a contract. Yeah. I'll go first on this one. If I'm a team, I would probably go 4 years. I'd go 4 years, 110 for Jeremy Grant. I'd go between 110 and 120.
Yeah.
Between $25-30 million a season. He could get more than that, especially from a team who has more money to give. For a contending team who may trade a piece away, like we saw, or maybe not even a contending team, like a playoff team, like we saw OKC on draft night take on the contract. Let me stop that. I was going somewhere completely different with that. That's what I mean. But anyways, there will be teams. I'm saying there are teams that will offer Jeremy Grant a contract. I just boofed on that one, but I'll bring that up later in the episode because I think that it is important to note OKC and what they did on draft night, taking on Davis Bertans' contract. Anyways, Jeremy Grant, I'm going 4 years, 110, 120. Jacob, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with 120. Because he's still a great scorer. But I don't know. Like I said, the team's going to overpay for him. I think we have different teams of where he'll go.
Yeah, and depending on what team he goes to, his role will be determined on what team he plays on. Like if he goes to like a contending team, he likely won't be that 20-point per game scorer where he's like the second option on a team. Mm-hmm. Or if he goes to a rebuilding team like he was in Detroit, he could be that first option again. So very high, a lot of different possibilities for Jeremy Grant. I would like to say that he stays with Portland. I could see him going elsewhere. I think that they'll make him a priority. I think it'll be up to him. I'm going to say that Jeremy Grant stays. I think Jeremy Grant will stay in Portland.
Yeah, I had him either in Portland or Sacramento, but Sacramento just extended Harrison Barnes, so that's probably out the window.
Yeah. We've seen the Indiana Pacers. We've seen other semi-contending teams potentially being in the market for Jeremy Grant. But I would like to say he stays in Portland, and I think he will. I think Portland will give him accommodate to him. I think they'll give him a pretty sizable deal in free agency.
That makes the most sense for him if he wants to, get paid.
Yeah, very true. Third guy is Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet, 29 years old, seeking a new contract either from the Toronto Raptors or elsewhere. Jacob, what are you giving Fred VanVleet this offseason? Guy who's been an all-star.
Yeah.
Had a little bit worse of a year this past year, but we know he's capable of being a 20-point per game scorer on a solid team.
Yeah, actually he had a down year last year. I know what one team is going to offer him, but I think I would do 4 years, 120, 125. But like I said, he's been an all-star before. He's still really, really great guard, plays some defense, but that down year, he's what, 28, 27, I think?
He's 29.
29.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do 120 because he's still a really good, really great player.
Yeah, I'll go a little higher. I'll go 130 for Fred VanVleet. I'll go just a tad bit higher. We've seen potential offers being out there from the Houston Rockets, teams like the Miami Heat, maybe your Philadelphia 76ers will throw him a contract. But I think that he's good enough of a player to warrant a max level deal. So I'll sit at 130 for Fred VanVleet. I'm interested to see where you think he'll land because he's a guy who could go to your team. Jacob, where do you think Fred VanVleet lands this offseason?
There's been a lot of rumors about Houston because there's a rumor of them offering like a 2-year, $80 million contract. I don't know why, but probably Houston or Philly. But that's why it kind of all depends on how fast they trade Harden if somebody goes to Philly. But right now, I'll say Houston.
Yeah, Fred VanVleet is a tough one to gauge because we know Houston has the money, but we've seen teams like the Heat and the Sixers be involved for a long time in his discussions. And he's an NBA champion. He was a big contributor on an NBA championship Raptor team. So I'm not going to say Houston. I think that he goes to a team who is ready to compete now. I'm going to say the Miami Heat. I think the Miami Heat find a way to land Fred VanVleet, likely to lose Gabe Vincent and Max Strus
Yeah.
this offseason in free agency. So I think that they have to accommodate to that, and I think that they have to kind of make up for some of their losses. I think Fred VanVleet is a good way to do that. He doesn't address their size issue at all, but I think that he's a good starting point guard, a good scoring option to have alongside Jimmy Butler and Bam and all those other Heat guys. So I'm going to go with the Miami Heat for Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, I'd like that for the Heat.
Yeah, he kind of fits Heat culture. He's a player that gritty, savvy player. He has the connect with Kyle Lowry. We don't know if Kyle Lowry will be on the team or not, in the next couple of weeks, but we'll see how it goes. But I can see him landing in Miami. Fourth guy is a guy that declined his player option this offseason to become an unrestricted free agent. That's Draymond Green. Draymond Green, for the first time in a while, is an unrestricted free agent with the possibility of leaving the Golden State Warriors. I'll go first on this one. He declined a $27 million player option. Draymond Green, to me, at this point of his career, is not worth much more than $27 million. If that, Draymond Green's a great player. He's, of course, won 4 championships with Golden State, does all the dirty work. Playmaking, defense, we know how great of a player he is. But he's also 33 years old at this point. If we're talking a long-term deal for Draymond Green, I think I'm going to go 3 years right here. I'm going to go 3 years. I'll go 3 years, 85 for Draymond Green. So essentially that $27.5 million threshold, but with a longer deal. And I think he'll get more than that since he turned down his deal. There's probably something in the works for him to receive more money, whether that be from the Warriors or somewhere else. But that's where I'll sit for Draymond. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, I like that. If it is long term, I could see a 4 year, 95 to 100. So that's not, like I said, he's not making as much, but he is at the back end of his career. We know what he can do, playmaking and defense. But I think the only team that will offer that is. I'll wait. But yeah, I'll say I like the 385 or the 4 120. I mean, 400.
Yeah, that's interesting for Draymond Green. That's an interesting dollar amount.
Yeah.
That's something that I feel like that if it's not the Golden State Warriors, he probably wouldn't accept. I feel like if he's going to be lured away from the Warriors, it will probably take a great deal of money, which I think at this point maybe 2 other teams would be willing to give him. Only 2 other teams, and that would be the Portland Trail Blazers and the Detroit Pistons. We know that it's Damian Lillard's dream scenario to have Draymond Green alongside him and re-signing Jeremy Grant this offseason, potentially making them contenders or whatever that means for the Blazers. But I've said for the longest time, if Draymond Green were to ever leave the Warriors, he would go to Portland. Portland would be the spot he'd end up where he could play along another transcendent shooting point guard, Steph Curry, and then Damian Lillard. Guy who he can set screens for, a guy who plays well in the pick and roll with him, and a guy who just has a lot of gravity in Damian Lillard. So I think, and I'm going to predict that Draymond Green is a Portland Trailblazer in a few weeks. I'm going to predict that. I don't think he'll be a Golden State Warrior. I think he'll be a Trailblazer.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see. I think he stays with Golden State, especially since they traded Jordan Poole. Because the bad terms they were on, or it could have been just Poole's contract to open up some more money. But yeah, it's either Golden State or Portland.
Yeah. Golden State has new management this offseason, and that's another reason why I think Draymond might be gone. I think that's 100% why he didn't accept his player option with them having new management. But it'll come down to how much they value Draymond Green as a part of that core and how much of a contender they see themselves here in these next coming years. But I think that there's a possibility Draymond Green goes elsewhere. And if he does, Portland is the spot. I think Portland's the spot. Player number 5. Let's see. Let's go D'Angelo Russell, player number 5. Guy who was traded from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Los Angeles Lakers halfway through last season. D'Angelo Russell's only 27 years old, so he's still got a good chunk of his career ahead of him. He was a little inconsistent in his play last season. Will likely not get the same amount of money that he did before, depending on what team he lands with. And there's no telling where D'Angelo Russell could land. Could land back with the Lakers or with a myriad of other teams. Jacob, what's your dollar amount for D'Angelo Russell?
How much did he make last year? Was it like a 30-something million?
It was, essentially $30 million.
Ooh. Like you said, he's inconsistent at times. I don't know if I want to give him 4. I think I'll say 3-year, 75 million. So I'll do 25 a year. It might kind of seem cheap, but he, been inconsistent his last few years, hasn't played at the level he has before. So I'll do 3, kind of a longer one. I'll do 3.75.
Yeah, I'm of a belief that he'll get around that amount of money as well. I'll just stay at the same money threshold. I'll throw in an extra year though. I'll throw 100, 105. I think that's about where he'll sit. I think that he's not a second option on a good team anymore. I think that he's kind of fallen out of that. But he's only 27 years old, so I think that he's still up for a longer-term deal, and he's a guy who will be likely traded again at some point in his career, whether that be this next season or the season after, whenever. He's a guy that's almost always in trade talks over the past couple of years. But my prediction for D'Angelo Russell's next team, I think he'll end up back with the Lakers just because I feel like they're striking out on a lot of their other point guard prospects. They likely won't land Kyrie Irving. They likely won't trade for Trae Young. James Harden, of course, came available today, but we haven't even seen the Lakers be involved in any of those talks up to this point. So I think that they'll kind of cut their losses and just re-sign D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah, I think he's going back to the Lakers. Because that's I guess the only place that makes sense for him. But because he wasn't bad with them, he was pretty good. Like you said, inconsistent, but that just makes the most sense.
Yeah, I think that's a very likely outcome, depending on what we see here over the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Next guy is Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez is an unrestricted free agent. Brook Lopez is 35 years old, but he's coming off of one of the best seasons of his career, his best defensive season of his career. And Brook Lopez only made $13 million last year. So his value is very, very interesting at this point. He's the number 1 center on the market. So I think I'll give Brook Lopez a 3-year deal at this point. I'll give him a 3-year deal, and I'll give him $57 million. I'll go about $19 million a season because I think he's worth it. I think that he is a great defensive anchor, even at his old age. He's a guy who can stretch out and shoot three-pointer very well now. And he's been on a contending Milwaukee Bucks team for the past couple of years, so he plays well on a good team with other good players. So I think that's very important to take into consideration as well. But I'll go 357 for Brook Lopez.
Yeah, like you said, his age kind of is like the factor in it. So I kind of stay in that range. I'll do a 2-year instead of a 3. I'll do a 240 to 45. So about 20 million. Like you said, he coming off the best season of his career. I think he led the league in blocks or was top 3. Still shoot the ball, but it's just that age. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Yeah, Brook Lopez, I think he's going to be in high demand. I think that he will be at a high demand here over the next couple of days, as we've seen a couple of teams already interested in him.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
I was gonna say I think he stays in Milwaukee.
Think so?
Yeah, I don't know if they're overpay for him, but if they want to keep him, they'll probably have to overpay. From what if other teams want him?
I have an inkling. I have a strange inkling that Brook Lopez will not be a Milwaukee Buck. For whatever reason, I think that there will be some type of movement over the next couple of weeks I think that a team will give him more than what we've said that we would give him.
Yeah.
And one team that I think would do that, depending on their circumstances, with a certain player who they've had in trade talks for a while, I think the Phoenix Suns. I think Brook Lopez ends up on the Phoenix Suns. I think DeAndre Ayton gets traded over the next couple of weeks, and I think that Brook Lopez. Well, it'd have to be like the next week.
Yeah.
But I think Brook Lopez is a candidate to end up on the Phoenix Suns. Kind of fits that mold of a guy who can stretch the floor. They need a defensive anchor. And I think that he's the perfect guy to run alongside all those great shot creators they've got in Phoenix now. So I'll go Brook Lopez with a sleeper pick to Phoenix.
Yeah, that'd be great for them. Be cheaper than DeAndre Ayton, but
And better. I think it'd just be better.
it would. Because he's a guy that really doesn't have to have the ball. He doesn't demand the ball.
Yeah. But of course, for that to happen, there would be multiple moves that would have to be made in a short amount of time. So unlikely, but that's what I would like to see. That's what I'd like to see the Suns do if they're really going to go all the way in, which it looks like they really are. I know the Bucks have every reason to bring him, Chris Middleton, and Jake Crowder back. I've seen that report, so he might end up a Milwaukee Buck, but I don't know. I've got a strange feeling he might go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think do they prioritize Brook or Middleton?
They prioritize Chris Middleton. They 100% prioritize Chris Middleton for sure. Next guy is a guy who just came off of a crazy big contract. The biggest contract of any free agent has been on several different teams over the last few years. He's 34 years old at this point, towards the back end of his career, most likely. That's Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is an unrestricted free agent, probably unlikely to re-sign with the Los Angeles Clippers, especially with this James Harden news potentially being broken. Jacob, what are you giving Russell Westbrook in free agency this offseason?
It's hard to say because he had a good second half of the year last year in the playoffs. Like you said, on the back end of his career,
it's likely that he'll get a shorter term deal.
Yeah. I don't know. Probably a 2-year deal. I think I'll do two-year deal, 15 to 20 million. That's kind of underpaying, but like he's inconsistent. You know, he has his moments, but
that's like mid-level exception. Type contract.
I think the mid-level 12 million.
Yeah, it's around that range. It's like MLE TPE range.
Yeah, I might do 225. I wouldn't go over 2 years. So I'd do 15 to 25. I don't know, maybe 30, just depending on the team. I don't think he's or there's a big market for him. So yeah, I don't think he'll get paid as much as he wants.
I don't know. I think that there will be a lot of teams actually that will be interested in Russell Westbrook depending on his asking price, of course. But if it's around that range, I think that he'll get a little more. I'm gonna go with 2 years as well, but I think he'll get upwards of 40 million. I think he'll get around 45 million. But I think that there will be teams interested because he's still a great playmaker at this point of his career. Of course, we know of his shooting woes and his inconsistencies and his turnover issues. But I still think that there's a lot of salvageable aspects of Russell Westbrook's game. And depending on the team, I think that there will be people in the market that would want to have Russell Westbrook as potentially their starting point guard.
Yeah.
Especially with the way, like I said, how he finished last season.
Yeah, like I said, I think it just depends on what team and how much he gets.
Yeah. A team that I think could be in the mix for Russell Westbrook, this may be a weird one and a little bit of a curveball, but the San Antonio Spurs. I think that the San Antonio Spurs could be a team in the market for Russell Westbrook. A team that's likely not going to win a whole lot of games next season, has a very young core. Um, Kind of lets Russell Westbrook come in and spread his wings a little bit. And I think that it will be a money thing. The Spurs have a lot of money and cap to give out this season. And he hasn't even been really mentioned in talks with the Spurs up to this point. But I like the fit. I like the fit because it gives Russell Westbrook freedom. It gives him a young core of guys, a good core of wings, and of course Victor Wembanyama now around him to just go out there and ball, just go out there and hoop. And I think that's what Russell Westbrook wants to do more than anything. I
Yeah.
do think there's a strong possibility that he stays in California, with him being from the area. But I like the San Antonio Spurs as a sleeper for Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, that they could. I think he stays with the Clippers. Wait, like you said, it depends on what happens with James Harden. But I think I might do another sleeper. I think I'm gonna go Miami.
Okay.
Comes up. Because especially if they do lose Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, and we don't know about Kyle Lowry yet. But I think he kind of, like you said, the playmaking, it gives him another playmaker. Won't score as much, but he still can get downhill. But I think if they just want a point guard and they need a point guard, Russ would be a bad fit for them.
Yeah, he kind of is reminiscent of Fred VanVleet without the shooting aspect of Fred VanVleet's game. I think that would be a solid fit. It is noted that the Clippers are likely to stay under the luxury tax, and with a new Russell Westbrook contract, trying to take on James Harden as well may be tough to do that.
Yeah.
Depending on what the Clippers would give up, especially if they're trying to take back Tobias Harris as well, in that potential trade. So that's part of the reason why I don't think Russell Westbrook ends up back with the Clippers. But we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Next guy. Let's go to Kyle Kuzma, because Kyle Kuzma likely to not be on the Washington Wizards at this point next week. He's a guy who averaged over 20 points a game last season, had his best statistical season. 27 years old, still young in his career. And he's likely to get a pretty good chunk of money this offseason. Jacob, what are you paying Kyle Kuzma?
Like, he can still score the ball. He's gonna get overpaid. But I think I would do. I think I would do 4/120.
Wow.
Around. I'll give him 30. Well, 115 to 120. That's a reach too, though. But
that's a lot for Kyle Kuzma.
I
had him at 4/100.
Yeah.
I had him at 125.
I'll say 110 to 120, but I think he is going to make around 30. Whatever team he goes to, I think he'll make around 30. But 110 to 120 is the absolute most.
Yeah. I mean, there are teams with a lot of cap space. Kyle Kuzma's the mold of a guy who could take on a lot of that cap. So yeah, I could see it happening. I could see him getting $30 million a year. But yeah, I'm gonna sit at 4/100, maybe even a little less for Kyle Kuzma, because on a good team, I don't think that he'll be the second option. He'll likely be the third, fourth option on that team. He provides good rebounding and versatility on the wing, but outside of that, not much to be liked, especially on the defensive side of the ball from Kyle Kuzma. But we've seen a lot of teams being mentioned with him already. We've seen teams like the Sacramento Kings and the Indiana Pacers. We've seen the Golden State Warriors. I've seen even the Golden State Warriors be mentioned with Kyle Kuzma if they're going to lose Draymond Green potentially. So I'm going to go Sacramento Kings, though. I think that the Kings are a good fit for Kyle Kuzma. It doesn't really address their defense problem.
Yeah.
But hey, if you're going to score 140, that forces the other team to score more than 140. And Kyle Kuzma, I think, would fit really well alongside De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Malik Monk, all those young guys over there in Sacramento. I like Kyle Kuzma in Sacramento.
Yeah, I think Sacramento too. Like I said earlier, they re-signed Harrison Barnes, so I don't know kind of what's going on with that, but Yeah, I think Sacramento or Indiana. I think it's just one of those two.
Yeah. The Harrison Barnes thing is a little wrinkle in it, but
'Cause I
I
think,
I really like that. I just really like Kyle Kuzma at Sacramento.
'cause, yeah, his was a 3 year, 54 million extension for Barnes. So, mm,
Yeah. Chris Middleton is on this list. We both think Chris Middleton's signing back with Milwaukee, right?
yeah.
Yeah. What's your dollar amount though for Chris Middleton? We can go ahead and knock him out real quick
Oh, I don't
because
know.
he declined like $40 million.
Yeah, no, I don't. He's not making that much.
Yeah, I think he just wanted a longer term deal.
Yeah, I don't know because he.
I'll, I'll sit at 145 for Chris Middleton, which is about $35 million a season.
Yeah, I'll say between 140 and 150, 4 years. I don't know. The injury is concerned. His injury history is a concern. I think he only played 33 games last year.
Yeah, he's 32 years old. Also,
Yeah, so he'll be 37 on the contract. So, or 36, 37. Yeah, I'll sit there because I think Milwaukee's going to pay that. If not, try to pay more. I don't think they should because I think Giannis's extension's coming up this year, maybe next year. So I know they're not going to try to spend a whole lot of money, but yeah, I think they're gonna pay Chris Middleton.
yeah, that's definitely priority number one for Milwaukee Bucks. Um, he'll be a Milwaukee Buck, despite unless something crazy unforeseen happens. Chris Middleton will re-sign with the Milwaukee Bucks. The
Yeah,
dollar amount will be interesting to see though,
because
especially with yeah, like Jacob said, Giannis being up for an extension next offseason, and he'll likely receive probably the biggest contract in the history of the NBA.
yeah,
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Chris Middleton resigns for. Another reason why I think Brook Lopez might be gone, depending on what they can sign him for.
yeah,
Look, we can knock out a few smaller guys here to kind of round it out. Like we said, not a whole lot of notable names.
yeah,
Let's go to NBA champion Bruce Brown though, because we've seen him be rumored with a couple of other teams besides the Denver Nuggets, and I think he'll likely get around like a 3 year, $50-60 million contract. I think he'll be in between like $15-20 million.
yeah. I agree.
You're around that range as well.
Yeah, 15, 20.
Yeah. I think he'll be a Los Angeles Laker. I do. I think Bruce Brown will be a Laker. I think that they are trying to kind of compensate. We saw that Malik Beasley will not be re-signed today. They'll likely re-sign Austin Reeves at some point this offseason. But I think Bruce Brown gives them a good defensive punch, and he's a solid outside shooter as well as he's proved this postseason and in the last couple of seasons. He has a much improved three-point jump shot. So I think the Lakers will prioritize Bruce Brown in free agency.
Yeah, I think it has picked up, especially today that they're, I guess, like the favorite destination. Well, if they get Bruce, are they keeping Hachimura, you think? Because he was big to them last year.
I think so. I don't think Hachimura will receive more than like. I think he'll get like 3 years, maybe like 30, 40 something. I don't think he'll get a big contract.
Yeah, yeah. I'll say Bruce Brown is either LA or LA. I think it's just LA.
Yeah, they're the only real team that we've seen make a push for Bruce Brown. I think there will be a lot of other teams that throw offers, but
Yeah,
I think that LA would be the team to steal him away from Denver at this point.
yeah,
Let's do three more guys. Let's do three more names here, and then we can call it an episode. Um, I'll wait to round out the episode with this guy. We'll go to. Let's go to Kelly Oubre. Kelly Oubre, an unrestricted free agent with Charlotte. He's a guy who's averaged 20 points per game over the last couple seasons. He's done it, I think, in 2021. He's only 27 years old, There's a potential rumor that he might be on his way back to Phoenix, depending on the dollar amount. Jacob, what would you give Kelly Oubre?
Like you said, he's a 20-point per game scorer.
Good defender as well.
Yeah, he can play multiple positions. I think I'm gonna go 4 year. I'll say 15 to 20 range, maybe a little bit more. Like I said, good defender, great scorer. I think it just depends on where he wants to go. If he goes to Phoenix, it won't be that much. But if there's a team that kind of wants a need for a guard forward, like he can probably get that, if not a little bit more.
Yeah, I think Kelly Oubre gets a little upwards of 20. I think from a rebuilding team, I think he gets about 3 years, $67 million. And the team I think gives him that is the Indiana Pacers. I think Kelly Oubre ends up in Indiana to go alongside Tyrese Halliburton and that young Indiana core. I think that that's a good fit. I think that Kelly Oubre provides a good defensive punch that they didn't really have over the past couple of years. He would be a veteran on that young team, but I like Kelly Oubre ending up in Indiana this offseason.
Yeah, I'd like that fit. I don't know. I haven't heard much about like what team he could go to, so I think I'll say Indiana too. Because I think they have to spend some money. So if it's not like how it was made, it'd be Kelly Oubre.
Right. Second to last player, let's go to Christian Wood. Christian Wood kind of underachieved with Dallas this offseason. I remember last offseason we were talking about Christian Wood potentially being like a 6 Man of the Year candidate.
Yeah.
And pushing Dallas further into championship contention, which we saw that they didn't even make the play-in. And Christian Wood kind of underachieved last season in his role with Dallas. He's only 27 years old as well, so he's fairly young. For Christian Wood, I'll give Christian Wood a long-term deal. I'll give him 4 years, but at this point in his career, I'm only giving him $70 million. I'm not going any higher than 70. Based off what we've seen, he's been a 20-point per game scorer on rebuilding teams like Detroit. So he's a guy we know can put the ball in the basket, but outside of that, has been a little underwhelming of recent, and I think it's kind of docked his value a little bit. What do you think about Christian Wood, Jacob?
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be 70, 75 maybe. I don't know because he had great moments last year, but then he just kind of stopped playing out of nowhere. So it is kind of hard to gauge, but I still think he can kind of contribute to a team, whether it be, rebuilding team or maybe not a championship contending team, but like a playoff contender. I think he can still contribute some. So yeah, I'll sit 70, 75 with you.
Yeah. I think Christian Wood's on his way back to Detroit. I think he's on his way back to being a Detroit Piston again.
Do you think something happens with one of their bigs? So they got 3 or 4 bigs already.
I think Christian Wood runs the 4 for them in the starting lineup alongside Jalen Duren.
Okay.
I think Isaiah Stewart gets traded and James Wiseman comes off the bench, and I think Christian Wood would be a guy to slide in and be their 4 and be a scorer alongside Cade Cunningham, who's a great playmaker, Asar Thompson, who they drafted with the 5th overall pick, to kind of just play alongside that rebuilding core in Detroit. I think that would let Christian Wood kind of play a more free game than, of course, he was able to last year in Dallas. So Detroit's the team for me, a team that he's been on before.
Yeah, I'll say Detroit or maybe. Do you think Chicago would go after him? Or they wouldn't have?
I think Chicago would have to be rebuilding too. I think they'd have to say that they're rebuilding. They just re-signed Vucevic and are likely going to re-sign Andre Drummond as well. So,
yeah. So yeah, I'll say Detroit because I forgot they're going to re-sign Drummond.
Yeah, I think Christian Wood will be on his way back to a rebuilding team. Detroit was the first name that I thought of that just made sense. So that's my logic behind that. Last player, I saved this guy for last on purpose because there's probably a wide range of money that he could potentially get. It's Dillon Brooks. We saved Dillon Brooks for last. It's almost impossible that he'll be back with the Memphis Grizzlies at this point. Jacob, what are you giving Dillon Brooks this offseason in free agency?
I'll give him. He's what 20.
He's 27 years old.
I'll give him a 4 year. Like I said, it's a wide range. I'll do 60, 70 maybe,
Okay.
because we know about his shooting, and we know puts up a lot of shots that don't go in, but he's still one of the top perimeter defenders and kind of, I guess, gritty guys. Does some of the dirty work. But for his defense alone, he can make some shots. But for his defense alone, I'll stick around 60 to 70.
Yeah. I don't know how much of a market there's going to be for Dillon Brooks. His market is really tough because I think the teams could use his defense, like you said, but his offensive inefficiencies are just so glaring. They're so hard to overlook. I'm gonna set at 345, 3 years, 45 million for Dillon Brooks, and I think that it's almost certain at this point. I think he's a Houston Rocket.
Yeah.
It's an environment where his offensive inefficiencies won't be detrimental to the team's success. A team who's not contending for a championship with a young core in Houston, they need defensive leadership, and Dillon Brooks can provide that for that young team. So I think Houston is a perfect landing spot for Dillon Brooks at this point in his career. But yeah, money wise,
it
I
varies.
don't know. Houston has a lot of money to throw, so he could get more than that. It just depends on how he's valued. I don't know how Dillon Brooks is valued at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to say because, like I said, the defense, I think a lot of people know, but it's just the offense. Like, does the defense make up for it?
Yeah,
but
I don't know what people think about Dillon Brooks at this point, because a lot of fan bases that I've seen, at least on Twitter, have been very polarizing to whether they want Dillon Brooks. A lot of the contending higher tier teams are like, no, keep him as far away from us as we can. But it's the younger teams usually who are like, yeah, we might as well just take a flyer on him and take everything that comes. So I think he'll end up with a a rebuilding team, and everything we've seen so far is pointed to Houston. So I think Dillon Brooks is a Houston Rocket at this point.
For the right price, would you want him in Portland?
Yes. Yeah, I would. I actually would. But the right price, do you know what the right price would be?
What?
No more than like 10 to 12 million a year. Which he'll get more money than that from some team.
Yeah.
But we've already got Matisse Thybulle in Portland, who is basically Dillon Brooks without the antics.
Yeah.
So
he's a free agent, a restricted free agent.
They gave him a qualifying offer, so he'll likely be back in Portland. Yeah. But yeah, that's basically the biggest names on the free agent market. All the rest of the smaller guys are back at the rotation type guys who will likely sign for 1 year veteran minimums or maybe MLE mid-level exception deals. So there will be a lot of player movement, but at the top, I think a lot of it will be via trade at this point. I don't think that there will be a lot of big-time player movement in free agency. I think that we'll see that with trades, with potentially the James Harden trade that we'll be monitoring very closely over the next couple of days.
I've had my notifications pulled up just in case something happens out of nowhere.
Has anything happened over the past like 40 minutes or so? I always go on D&D during whenever we record these, so I rely on Jacob for all the happenings if anything happens in the episodes.
No, the only thing I've seen is just Brian Windhorst said watch for Kyrie to Philly.
Really?
That he could investigate what's going on in Philly.
Interesting. That would be. How would you feel about that? That tells me I need to know.
Win now mode, but win now mode, why not? But I don't know. Like it's gonna cost a lot. That's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't expect Daryl Morey to sit idle. I expect him to salvage James Harden somewhere, one way or another, whether it be in that trade or another trade this offseason.
I hate this team. I really think it'll. I think he gets traded before the 5 o'clock start time tomorrow, or 6 p.m. Eastern time start tomorrow to free agency. I don't know though, because he likes to sit and wait till last minute. Because they said, I think he picked the player option to compete in Philly if he doesn't get traded, but still leave or go to the contender. I don't know.
I mean, everything I've seen says that he's played his last game.
Yeah.
Big
So
Trey.
preferably him or Tobias needs to be gone by tomorrow so we could, get a bigger free agent like a Fred VanVleet or no, I really don't even know. Just a bigger name free agent. And then, but I think it has to be within the next about 20 hours. Right before that 5 o'clock thing, they need to kind of know what they're going to do.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hectic next couple of days. As we saw last year, whenever that 5 o'clock hour hit, I think there were like 20 notifications just on top of each other of players agreeing to contracts right at that deadline. So yeah, it's gonna be a jam-packed day tomorrow, and I expect for the bigger guys that it will carry over into the next couple of days with some of the meetings that will be held. With guys like Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook, D'Angelo Russell, maybe Draymond Green. I don't expect Draymond Green's deal to get done tomorrow, unless it's the Golden State Warriors. So a lot of interesting movement to be seen here over the next couple of days for sure.
Yeah, but Harden, I think he wanted the deal as soon as free agency opened from us, and they don't want to get docked for tampering again, so then he kind of just requested a trade. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very I think it's going to be a trend this year that we see almost every team that's not at the very, very top is going to do everything they can to stay away from the luxury tax.
Oh yeah.
Because of the new CBA and because of the rules, it takes away your ability to sign players in the buyout market.
Yeah.
It takes away potential draft compensation. It takes away like potential mid-level exception contracts to throw in future free agencies. So it's very, very interesting ins and outs and has kind of a chain reaction in years to come. So if you're not at the very top, that's something that you really want to stay away from. As we've seen teams like the Atlanta Hawks and the Clippers are trying to do a little bit of here with some of the moves that they've made. The John Collins trade was almost essentially to do that, to stay away from the luxury tax completely.
Yeah, he got traded for nothing, but
basically, and I think we'll see more trades like that. I think we'll see more trades where they may seem uneven talent-wise of the players that are involved, but I think that contractually, the implications of trades will be so much more based off of contracts here over the next couple of years than just player-for-player talent swaps.
Yeah. It's gonna be. I think there's gonna be a lot of that. A lot of just kind of dumping contracts to certain teams because I think with the CBA you have to spend up. You have to spend up to I think 90% of the tax or cap room as a team. So teams are gonna overpay just to reach that level.
Yeah. If I'm a guy that's what I'm saying. If I'm a guy like Russell Westbrook, who had a good end to last season, I could demand like almost $30 million, next year from a team like the Rockets or the Spurs or the Pacers, who have money to blow, and if they still have that money within like day 5 or day 6 of free agency, and they've already struck out on some of their other prospects, and they've got to pay somebody. Hey, I'm here.
So, he could play good, and he could always get flipped somewhere else.
So. Yeah. It'll be very interesting to see this time around, and we'll be here within the next probably 5 days to recap everything that's happened up to that point. We'll probably wait till all the big names sign to put out another episode, but I expect that to happen within the next 5-6 days or so. Yeah. So expect another episode around midweek next week, recapping free agency and looking ahead to Summer League. So, yeah. Jacob, you got anything else to say before we close today?
I think we covered it.
Yep. Going to be a lot of notifications, a lot of moving pieces here in the next couple of days. Exciting times here. The dog days are back. The height of the dog days, at least it's not just we're coming in here. No news at all. We've got all the news. That's good. But we'll sign out until next week. See y'all then.
Yeah.